Hello and welcome to Cricket8 Podcast. I'm Megha and joining me here is Rob waving hello to all of you. Now, the topic that we'd be discussing today, yeah, keep it going, keep it going. The topic that we'd be discussing today is whether India is prepared enough for the Champions Trophy and if it has the wherewithal, all the right ammunition in place to actually lift the trophy, because anything less than that wouldn't be acceptable. Now, India has recently lost the ODI series to Sri Lanka. The margin was 0-2, the first game being ending in a tie. And there's just one series to play before the Champions Trophy, and that is against England next year, early next year. So, Rob, is India ready? We'd also figure out the combinations that India could potentially look at. But just to answer that question, is India ready?
Well, are they going to play in it first? I mean, if it's all in Pakistan, are they going to play? Um, I think a lot will be done between now and then as regards the venues. But leaving that aside, because I don't have any say in that, but obviously we've got quite a big say here on cricket and who's going to play for India. It's I was looking at who played in the World Cup final, and there are people
Yeah.
that you'd think, well, Hardik didn't play in the World Cup final, and if he's fit, he gets in India's best
Hmm.
team. Um, Obviously, the pace attack, they're going to need Shami back because the other guys don't appear to be up to it now. Bumrah must lead the attack, so you can go through the definites, and the top three will stay the same. You'd have thought Rohit, Gill, Virat. Um, Everybody would want that to be their top three. Then I don't know. 4-5 is has Shreyas Iyer done enough in the last sort of 6 months? Is Pant going to be in ahead of KL? It looks like to me that's a shootout. It's
Hmm.
going to be either one of those two. As we've discussed before, I think Pant should probably get the nod because he's more fun and can play the 50 off 20, whereas KL has kind of forgotten how to do that. And then we see some of the names that they've tried in the last couple of weeks, and they're probably not the answer. I don't see how Dubé gets in India's best team.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, we all know that he's quite good at whacking spin, but like, is he good at whacking really good spin? And he's getting better against pace. But his problem is the amount of times he's 3 off 10, and you think, right, come on, then now you got to go. And nowadays, India with such a strong batting lineup can't afford to have somebody coming in down the order and being 3 off 10 and then getting out. Like if he suddenly faces a load of bouncers that he doesn't like, or the bowling's too quick, he can take a while to get going. So I don't think he's the answer. His bowling definitely isn't the answer. Um, the question marks is nothing to do with the top three. It's not really the batting because there's
Hmm.
still what 4 or 5 that haven't been in that squad, or the most recent ODI squad that could easily start for India. We've not spoken about Rinku. They've got
Yeah.
the batting talent is ludicrous, but then it's the pace department. I think Axar probably gets in India's best team, and I don't think he played in the World Cup final, did he?
No.
Um,
Wasn't in the squad either.
so that's, I mean, that shows how much strength and depth India have got. What the pitches are going to do, we don't know because we don't know where India's
Hmm.
games are going to be played for a start. If Pakistan, if it's anything like the PSL pitches, it's just road after road, and dew is a massive deal. So they're going to have to do something about that to stop there being a huge chase bias. Uh, I think when you've got Kuldeep, Axar, and Jadeja, I don't think they really need to. They keep trying to make Washington into this all rounder or probable starter, but let's face it, he's not in India's best 11 at the moment. Washington, they've got the only problem that India have got for me is pace attack without Bumrah, and I think getting Shami fit. I've heard he's going to be back in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, does Sky get in India's best 11? Because it's hard to make a place for him.
Hmm. All right. So now an interesting perspective because with regards to Suryakumar Yadav, it was an experiment that India tried at the highest level, that is at the World Cup. And once Mohammad Shami got injured, again, oh sorry, once Hardik Pandya got injured and Mohammad Shami came back in, there was this issue around the team combination and the balance. Shardul Thakur had to make way, and in came Suryakumar Yadav. And however you look at it, eventually that's how it all panned out. There were two players who were out, one because he was injured, another because India realized probably he was not the solution. And the two player who walked in, Mohammad Shami, obviously he created ripples in the tournament and finished with truckloads of wickets. But Suryakumar Yadav, now India always made sure that he got the right introduction point whenever they could make sure he got the right introduction point. They tried to make sure that he gets to perform in the conditions where he likes to perform, but somehow it just didn't click for him. And if you remember, before the previous edition of the IPL as well, he did feature in the ODIs against Australia as well. And there too, it just didn't work out for him. So had a couple of ducks and didn't start IPL that well. One was wondering whether it is to do with the format, him not being that comfortable in ODIs, or was it to do with just his form? But then he found his form a couple of games into the IPL, but that form somehow evaded him in the format. So the chairman of selectors, that is Ajit Agarkar, he recently mentioned that Sky doesn't feature in India's plan of things as far as the ODIs are concerned. He's the T20I captain. Looks like he's going to be the T20I captain for a while now, but Sky is pretty interested in playing all formats, and he's also featuring in Bucci Babu tournament, which is ahead of the domestic season. This tournament is played, and it is obviously the longer format tournament. So it's not just ODIs, it's also Test cricket that Suryakumar Yadav is eyeing, but just whatever you attribute it to, that has not worked out for him. And it's not like he's got bad list A or bad first class record. He's done well at domestic level in those two formats. But Rob, probably you can answer, why doesn't it work for him once the format becomes longer?
Yeah, it's the format thing. Whereas we get a lot of questions around, is Sky the best T20 bat in the world? And if he cared more about his wicket, which I don't think he should, he would be like undoubtedly in the conversation all the time. But the amount of times he comes in and gets out first ball because he's trying to hit it to the moon, but that's the right thing for him to do in that side, right? Is to come in and smoke it from ball one, and sometimes he gets out early. And I think, like in the World Cup final, for example, he was number 7 and Shami was number 8. Now that is a huge drop off, and 3 absolute idiots with the bat behind him. And okay, Kuldeep's fine as far as facing balls go, but when you've got that behind you, like you're number 7 and Shami's number 8, that's such a big difference. It's difficult to know what you're meant to do, and he got stuck in the World Cup final. I think a lot of Indian batsmen did, because he didn't quite know what to do. And I think he's at his best when he just comes in and guns it. And you mentioned there, Megha, entry point basically is really, really important for him. But when he comes in and he's like, I'm not sure, Moeen Ali does this for England. I'm not sure whether I should be whacking it because that's what I'm in the team for, but we've lost wicket, so now I have to calm down. And the guy that nudges the ball around, like Shreyas Iyer can do that until,
Yeah.
forever. He can nudge the ball around and rebuild. Jadeja can do that forever. He's made a career of doing it, really. We all know what he can do at the end against pace, but Jadeja can come in and knock it around. But when have you ever associated with Sky with that kind of knock? Come in and knock it around? So unfortunately with ODIs, if they've just had like a bit of a collapse in the middle order, he's sent in to nudge it around with Shami and Arshdeep at the other end. Like, that's no good to anybody, is it? You want him to just gun it from, do what he's really good at. And when he went duck, 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 didn't he, in 3 successive innings in ODIs, he wasn't that bothered because he knows. He's like, well, yeah, I got good balls first up and I was trying to whack it and, whatever, it's fine. He's one of the least bothered cricketers in the world about what we perceive as bad form, which other people was like, well, I faced 3 good balls and I got out and that's okay, and I'll be see you next week, I'll be fine. He's unbelievably talented, but if I can see why if you were Indian selectors, you'd go, we've got an unbelievably good T20 player who's going to play in the IPL all the time and he's going to be brilliant for us in T20s. That's fine. But I mean, imagine having somebody that talented and they're not in a squad for the World Cup. I mean, that seems crazy to me. But you have to use him as a blaster. And we've spoken, but is Rinku better at finishing? Yeah. Or do you put Sky up the order and go, well, let's have an explosive number 3? If Rohit and Gill have got you off to a good start, the amount of times that Rohit can do it, but I think India, almost as much as any other country, Australia are very bad for this, but they hate having floating batsmen in the order, which it's the only answer is to have a malleable or movable batting order, flexible, because certain scenarios call for different players. And I'd much rather have Jadeja in after like a bit of a crisis than Sky trying to dig you out of it. Let Sky have a go
Yeah.
first. And if he gets his 50 off 20, then you're miles ahead of the game.
Mm.
And let's say, India lost, what were they, 97 for none against Sri Lanka off like 12
Yeah.
overs or something. And they buggered it up because whoever came, when Rohit went, all the rest of them queued up and tried to knock it about on a difficult pitch, and they got stuck, and it was spinning loads. If when you're 97 for one after, you're so far ahead of the game, the only way
Yeah.
you can lose it is by plodding about and scoring 3 and over, and then a couple of wickets go down and panic sets in. If you have a guy like Sky walks out number 3, then because they've broke, it's not swinging around or anything, they've broken the back of the chase, and he comes in then and gets 50 off 25, the game's finished, it's done. But if you say he's our number 7 and he doesn't bat that day, or he comes in with bloody Arshdeep and Siraj for company at the end of the innings, it's a completely different situation because he's not quite sure what to do. But we come back to this time and time again. Clarity of role and batting orders win World Cups, win tournaments. I would have him in my squad if I was an Indian selector, but I would have him, as you just said, like a floating batsman, and you use him when you need him. And if you batting first and he doesn't face any balls, you've done it wrong. And if you're chasing, there are times where you can say to him, we don't need you today. Everything's gone fine. But when you've got a guy that can hit 50 off 18 and he can score 360 degrees against all types of bowling, how does he not get in the squad?
Hmm. Probably because the sample size is decent enough now. His initiation into ODIs was fine, but subsequently, what happened last year, if India reflects on that, they might feel the urge to look beyond him. For whatever reasons, it has just not worked out for India, and there's so many contenders for that slot. Although we're not really sure about which slot because it's not really clear in case of Sky. Now, there's an interesting comment here. SAG says they think Sky is ABD or they're Glenn Maxwell. Who thinks so? You will also have to clarify there. Rakshit has taken offense to the comment that you made. Washington is not blockbuster, but is vital in the middle overs, especially with the ball. Potential to be an R. Ashwin type of player. Over there, he's also left a question mark. So it's not something that he's asserting, but that's what he's asking.
I mean, if Ashwin was 4 years younger and fit, I'm not entirely sure he gets in their best team now because of how the
Yeah.
game has moved on. I mean, I love Ashwin. I like his thinking. I like his batting. I like the fact that he can be 2 or 3 different types of batsmen, are Ashwin. And he's probably the best ever thinking man's bowler as far as, coming up with new ideas, or like Warne is, but after him. Um, but I think they want to turn Washington into the Ashwin replacement, is basically it. And Washington's bowling will never be as good as Ashwin's is or was.
Mm.
Because he's quite limited. He doesn't turn the ball much. He doesn't have mystery about him. He doesn't have these variations. Great if he can go away and work with Ashwin, work on that stuff. He's a completely different type of bowler. He bowls kind of wicket to wicket without much movement, hoping, he used to come in and do the Akil job of just drying up the power play. Then players quite rightly realised that it wasn't actually doing much, so you can just step and hit. And then he became much less useful. But this last post IPL, it's gone really well for Washington, hasn't it? Like his stock's gone right up.
Yeah.
But they don't need somebody who's absolutely fine with the bat but doesn't do a great deal with the ball. India's team is too good for that. Like Washington gets in a lot of other teams, but India's team is too good. They don't need somebody that can do a job with the bat and score at what strike rate 90 or something in ODIs, because they've got loads of people that can do that. They need him to be, if Washington's going to play, which he won't, if he's going to play, he needs to be a frontline bowler and not one that bowls 4 overs in some conditions, somebody that can bowl 10 and not necessarily just when it's spinning. And he ain't that guy yet. But you've got Kuldeep. Jadeja's a bit of a question mark for me.
Yeah.
I think I know he's contemplating various retirements. But I think Jadeja is a guy that his bowling is not what it was 18
Hmm.
months ago, let alone 5 years ago. Like he seems to be hittable now. IPL, he got whacked a bit, which never happened in the IPL before. It used to be just Jadeja comes on and they get six singles and that's that. But this year, he seemed a bit more hittable. I don't know whether that's just age catching up with him or he wasn't overly fit or whatever, but he's a bit of a question mark for India. Um, what was the other question that Sag came up with? That we think that he's the same as AB or Maxwell?
Yeah.
Well,
Not really
AB
us,
was
the selectors, he's clarified that,
yeah,
but in
he's
any
not
case, yeah.
there, but he's got that level of precocious
Yeah.
talent, but he just hasn't done it in ODIs. And to be fair, as you said, Megha, his sample size of what has he played 35 knocks now in ODIs? That's quite a lot. And he's played basically all the big teams and his strike rate's 105 and that ain't what he's there for at number 6
Yeah.
and number 7 like his strike rate should be 135 really. And if they're only using him to whack it, it can be higher than that. Look at what he can do in T20. So yeah, fair enough. Like he's had quite a lot of goes and not really done it. Yeah, they've got questions, but every other side would like to have the questions that India have to answer.
Not complaining about the questions. Pratik says that even he was upset during the World Cup finals when
Pissed off, he
India
says.
sent Jadeja, yeah, I mean, kind of synonymous, over Sky in the finals. So the entry point that I was alluding to, it all boils down to that because India is not looking at Sky as somebody who take care of the team in times of crisis. Now, if there is a full blown crisis, obviously he'd have to step up, but even when there was a crisis, India were looking at other options to first resurrect the innings, create that platform from which Sky could whack big boundaries, so that India ended up with a competitive target. That didn't eventually happen. Nobody really followed the plan, and it all went haywire. But again, if not then, then when? And there's no looking back. I think.
Yeah, India don't need
Do
to
you want
play
to harp on
safe.
it?
Yeah, India
Yeah.
don't need to play safe. They don't need to pick a team that's
Hmm.
going to get them out of trouble because they should
Hmm.
be the team that's putting everybody else in trouble, right? Don't pick a team as if you're seventh favourites for the World Cup and try and, oh, let's see what, when we're under it, we need to be able to dig ourselves.
Who
You're
was his
India,
seventh
right?
favorite for
The,
the World
the,
Cup?
uh, good
50
question.
edition,
Probably
50 overs
Bangladesh or
edition.
something. Um,
Okay, thanks.
but uh, India are going to be favourites for basically every ODI tournament that happens in the next 20 years. Like it'd be surprising if they weren't. Um, they don't need to set up as if let's do that. They need to be more aggressive. The reason why they didn't win the last World Cup, which they absolutely should have done, is because they didn't try to score runs hard enough in the World Cup final. They buggered about for
Yeah.
most of the innings. They went an hour and
Mm.
20 minutes without scoring a boundary. In the World Cup white ball final, when you've got all of these unbelievable players at your disposal.
And the start that India got with Rohit.
Yeah, and again, high intent Rohit is the best ODI opener of all time. Like that's how good he is. And they had high intent Rohit and he did come out and whack it. And they basically just said, well, we'll be okay here as long as Travis Head doesn't go nuts or Maxwell doesn't go nuts or whatever. And Travis Head did go nuts and they got stuffed.
Yeah.
And it was so India must learn from that. So now we're moving away from which guys do they pick, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who's selecting. India are going to end up with a really good team. Like you can argue about KL or Pant. They're both really
Mm.
good. It's fine. You could argue about which spinner or spinners get in and whether it's Rinku or Sky. Rinku's done brilliantly well when he's played for India. All
Yeah.
of these are good problems. But if you come out and say, well, we need to make sure if the middle order is KL and Ia just knocking it around with zero intent because we
Yeah.
don't want to lose another wicket. If you play
Mm.
scared, you lose cricket matches because you don't get as many runs as you should do. And the way South Africa, who have their own problems mentally of like winning proper matches, but what South Africa do when they have a very clear plan of they lay a platform because they know they've got Klaas and Miller, Markram, middle order.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
can afford to lay the platform. They had De Kock at the top, who isn't as explosive as everybody thinks he is, but they got off to an okay start, and then someone like Van der Dussen is just out and out nudge around, He can light up, but his job is to just keep wickets in hand until over 30. Then they have a drinks break and they go, right, guys, we've got Klassen, Miller, Markram. That is carnage. Let's go. And the handbrake comes off. Klassen tries to smoke it everywhere. And so what that means is they get like an optimum score is possible for them. If you come out and go, right, we're just going to fanny around with it and keep wickets in hand for as long as we can and hope somebody goes mental at the end, you're getting 270 when you should be aiming at 320. And when you're the best team, you need to take the handbrake off and go for it. And they must know that when two of your top three are Gill and Virat, that if they lose a couple of wickets, they've got guys that can just nudge it about and be absolutely fine in any conditions. Again, any other team would have those two in it in world cricket. So India, if they don't win the Champions Trophy, assuming they go and play in it, it will probably because they've got the tactics wrong again, because they got the tactics extremely wrong in the World Cup final, batting first and not trying to score a winning target. They just basically, India have set up for a while now saying, if we get about par, we've got Bumrah, so it's fine. And it nearly blew up. South Africa lost that T20 World Cup final. I don't think India won it. I think South Africa lost it.
Okay.
They should win
We
that.
still get to keep the trophy.
We'll allow you to keep the trophy, for a couple of years. But India's tactics there were a bit of a gamble. They didn't get out of sight, did they? And they kind of, they handed it to South Africa, and South Africa very kindly handed it back. But when we all know how big a World Cup final is in India, 50 over World Cup final in India, it is absolutely huge, like the stature of that cricket match. And if I was an Indian fan, to watch them come out and just knock it about and not bother trying to score a boundary, the pitch was quite tricky, but the bowling wasn't that good.
Factoring in the conditions.
I'd be fuming to watch that. Whereas at least with England, we will get bowled out trying to score too many. And for a year or two, we were like, we know we're going to get bowled out sometimes. But there's nothing worse than coming off and we've seen it in the IPL a few times, that Lucknow game where they came off and KL had knocked it around and they scored 160. And they were like 160 for 4 and all shaking hands and high-fiving and everything. And then it got chased in 9 overs. And you think, well, what the hell are you doing? Like, you didn't score quick enough. And there's nothing worse than going to support a cricket team. And England did this for every single ODI until basically 2015, until that disaster of a World Cup, where they were trying their absolute best to score about par, and the bowling attack wasn't any good. So they kept getting whacked. They kept, teams kept chasing their 240 or 250. And then they realised that to win, you have to gun it. And now they've regressed back to the pack because the players aren't up to it, and they keep, they're making selection and management terrible decisions. But India need to sort their tactics out. I don't really think there's many issues around the personnel. Like if Shami can get fit again, he seems to be like he goes on streaks in big tournaments, doesn't he? Didn't he get the most wickets in the IPL and second most in the World Cup? And he only played half the games. Get that guy fit, and then they've got 2 really good pacers, and Shami and Bumrah work very well together. They can go all spin. They've got so many options. They've got a team for all conditions, but they've got to do it properly. And intent and batting order is how India will. If India don't win it, that's what they'll get wrong, is their intent and their batting order.
So I'd get back to the batting order, and because you've talked about Mohammad Shami, now we're not really sure whether the Shami that makes a comeback after injury at his age and his junction of career, if that would be the same as the one that we saw during the World Cup, who had a bit of niggle and yet managed to bring out his A game. So that is another thing to look forward to. Now, Sunny says that he thinks that India lacks bite in its fast bowling attack without Bumrah. Siraj is a spree bowler, and Arshdeep didn't convince him enough, and he hopes and wishes that Harshit Rana gets a chance. So let's take it one by one. First, talk about Mohammad Siraj. With all that he can bring to the table, he can help India lift a title. For example, Asia Cup, the finals. If there were any nerves, any jitters around it being a final, with Siraj, the sort of spell that he had, he completely closed the game as a contest right at the start. Against South Africa as well, that was a baggage that India had been carrying not winning a series in South Africa. Not that they won it last time around, but they managed to equal it. It ended 1-all for both teams. And after having lost the first game, it was Siraj's spell in the second game that actually tilted the scales in India's favor, and overwhelmingly in India's favor, despite the fact that eventually they lost a lot of wickets in the first innings for 50 runs, 10 or 10 wickets or something. I mean, it was pretty bad then. But then because Siraj had bowled so well that India couldn't lose that game. So you need Siraj for things like that. But we've not seen him be consistent for a while now. So how do you see him in India's plan? Do they look at him as a player who on his day can turn the game on his own, or do they kind of distance themselves from such players, look for people who are more consistent?
Yeah, if it was me, I don't think I would pick Siraj because they don't need somebody who is really good 1 in 10 in that bowling attack. They need somebody who is fine every time. You want guys that are, and some sports teams like football teams do this a lot. They just have like people like right back or centre mid that just do a job every time, and you can trust them to be 7 out of 10. England had a player called Gary Neville who wasn't particularly good, but he wasn't bad either. So he just did his job and he gave the ball to Beckham, who played in front of him, and he made a career of like not messing it up. He was never spectacular. He didn't score any goals. Didn't do anything really amazing. Wasn't very quick. Wasn't very tall. Wasn't very strong. None of that. Just did his job and passed the ball on. And when you've got and the reason why he was successful in his career is because he played in amazing teams, right? So whoever plays as that third pacer for India is going to be playing in an amazing team, and they don't need to carry the attack. They don't need to get 4 for 12. They just need to do a job so that Bumrah's got something to bowl at, basically. And Siraj can do that 3 for 4, and we've seen him in the IPL
Mm,
have it on an absolute string at the start of the
yeah.
innings. When it swings, sometimes he's absolutely lethal, but when he's
Mm.
bad, he is terrible. Siraj, like he is as like so bad, and he just bowls faster and faster into the slot, loses his head completely. He offers you nothing in the field, nothing with the bat, and has a questionable temperament. That is not what India need when you've got Bumrah in your attack and really good spinners. You just need somebody who's going to be fine. And it's a shame for India that Shardul has kind of fallen off a cliff with bat and ball, because
Mm.
he gave them that amazing balance of coming in at 8. And then if you've got Sky at 7 and Shardul at 8, you can carry on batting. But yeah, it's Siraj is not the answer because he's only good every now and again. You want somebody who's just fine, who just goes at like slightly less than a run a ball, gets the odd wicket, can whack a few at the end. You know what I mean? Just a normal average
Yeah.
cricketer is fine in that spot. What you don't want if you're India
Mm.
is the leaky Siraj that can go for 16 in and over when it really matters at the end, and then you lose. So Siraj for me wouldn't get in. I don't know which format he likes playing. I don't think T20 is his best format. I think he's moaned about playing certain white ball tournaments and games in the past. I think India would probably be better off investing a bit more in Arshdeep, who has shown genuine death skills in T20 for the
Yeah.
not the last World Cup perhaps, but the one before. He was brilliant. And he's still very young. Again, he doesn't offer you anything with the bat, and he doesn't offer you much in the field. But if you can get Arshdeep with some death skills to be averagely good at the death and fine in
Mm.
the middle and okay at the start, then India don't have a problem. What India really don't need is somebody who is occasionally very leaky and can get whacked. And at the
Mm.
moment, that guy is definitely Siraj. Like if you're Australia and you're thinking, right, we need 23 off the last 2 overs, and India are going, right, well, we've got Bumrah, you could almost block him out. You get 5 off that Bumrah over, you can shoo Siraj all over the place if his radar's off. And they just need somebody to work with arguably the best white ball bowler of all time in Bumrah, and definitely the best on the
Yeah.
planet right now. So, yes, Siraj isn't the answer.
Hmm. Quickly, taking some questions in batting, Santosh has thrown another name in and he thinks it's high time India opens with Jaiswal and Rohit. Does India have enough time to experiment? And also the fact that what wrong has Shubman Gill done? He had an ordinary ODI World Cup, but by his standards, considering the sort of runs, the manner in which he scored his runs before that, and that first part of 2023, including the IPL, Vasant says that Virat Kohli has come in flat pitches, has best has come in flat pitches or in pace friendly pitches. He has had his struggles, be it Bangladesh or even in test matches in India. We need a player who can play spin better and smack him. So, do you mean you want Virat Kohli to be replaced? And anyway, if it is played in Pakistan, the whole of it, and if India plays in Pakistan, then highly likely that the wickets would be good for run scoring. So it all falls in place. In any case, you smirked when I just read that question. So, quickly summing up the conversation, and what would your batting order look like for India?
Um, I I totally agree that Jaiswal should be in the thinking, and I think his time will definitely come. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Shubman Gill went from 182 to 200 in 3 hits in an
Yeah.
ODI. Like he's got it, Shubman Gill, and nobody liked those pitches in the recent T20 World Cup. I think we can forgive him on those. I
Hmm.
think the top three is Rohit, Gill, and Kohli, and Jaiswal is the one that's waiting there. I don't see Jaiswal as a 4, 5, or 6. They could have turned him into a 6 if they wanted to. They could have gone, look, you're not going to get in as an opener or top three bat for a while. Let be a 6 for the first 2 or 3 years of your career, and then we'll blood you in as an opener later when Rohit gives it up. But they didn't do that because they don't need to, because they've got so many good middle order players. I think for, again, there shouldn't be a fixed order here, but Pant if you're going well and Shreyas if you're not. Um,
Yeah.
and then don't know if Sky's not allowed to play. Don't know. Um,
Not allowed.
are you saying that Agarka doesn't like Sky and he's not going to pick him?
What do you mean by not allowed to play?
Well, am I allowed to pick Sky in my team? Because I think he just about gets in mine. Like,
Okay,
or
you
Rinku. Rinku's
you get to do
absolutely
whatever
fine.
you want.
Yeah, that's true. Uh, I think I'd probably pick Rinku as that number 7. I think he's done enough, and he's still young,
Interesting.
and he missed out as the last T20 World Cup, which was a bit harsh. Um, Bowling attack, get rid of Siraj, get Shami fit, let Bumrah bowl all the important overs. Everything's fine for India. Like, stop worrying about it. Everything's going to be absolutely fine. Just don't muck about, nudging it around when you've got wickets in hand and the best team. Use them to, like, you're only the best team if you play to your potential, and when the ball is there to be gunned, which it is nowadays with a lot of these flat pitches, gun it and stop mucking about, because most of the other teams have got 2 or 3 guys now that can smoke it everywhere. And if India go, well, look at us, and the other criticism that you occasionally get with Indian bats, and some Pakistani bats, to be fair, is this milestone hunting that comes in when somebody's on
Hmm.
43. None of this 7 singles to get 50, and if you're on 90, none of this 21 balls to get from 90 to 100. That has to be completely out the window now. It's, if you've got wickets in hand, smoke it. If you haven't, nudge it around and take the runs that are there. And don't be afraid to send guys up the order if it's going well. Like, don't throw away good positions. But yeah, India have such an amazing squad that they'll be absolutely fine.
If you're an Indian fan, make sure you listen to Rob, because if you're feeling low, if you're happy, you get to celebrate with him. If you're feeling low, you'd feel better, because he keeps harping on the fact that India have nothing really to worry about, and I really am not complaining about it. In any case, complaining about a statement, that is to say. In any case, what would your squad for India be like for the Champions Trophy? Do let us know in the comment section, and you can also let us know your 11 for the important matches, factoring in the conditions. So let's say the wicket is good for batting, and maybe one is good for pace bowlers and spinners, and is good for bowlers in general. So in any case, do specify what you're selecting. And all right, then that's all we have time for now. But remember, you can follow us across the social media platforms. To remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. If you haven't already done that, press the bell icon so that whenever Rob, Jared, or any of us speak, you get notified, and you get to take a call on whether you want to hear or not, depending on the topic. In any case, Rob is also on social media. So, Rob, how are you on social media? What do you
I'm absolutely
look
terrible
like
at it,
there?
but I have
Yeah,
a Twitter account, and it's called Hold the Line
you
at
forgot.
Monsieur Judge is the only thing I've got. So if you want to come at me, bring it on, and don't forget
Mm,
to press all the buttons on the stuff and subscribe and all that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
very important.
yeah. Make sure you don't, once you've subscribed, you don't press the unsubscribe button. In any case, thank you so much for joining. And Sag, this is the last question that I'm taking. Rob, you look worried. Are you okay? You get to answer that in monosyllables.
I'm I am in a state of constant fear and trepidation. Goodbye.
Okay, you left me curious.